him, the Mughal Empire under him, was much more greater than any other political rule in the world during that period of time.
Would you agree with the fact that he was a religious bigot or not?
Aurangzeb became one of the first kings who tried to mix religion with politics. The history writing has never made him a sole villain. Unfortunately, what is happening is that in the present decades, uh, history itself is being villainized. Deccan had always been a Karam Bhumi for Aurangzeb as a prince. Even among these common soldiers, the Mughal army, the majority were always the non-Muslims. Indigenous Mughal army, led by Mirza Raja Jai Singh, a non-Muslim, fought and defeated Shivaji. Aurangzeb's relations with Marathas is something which Sir Jadunath Sarkar, the famous 19th century historian, calls that the whatever happened in the Deccan was actually a Spanish ulcer as far as Aurangzeb is concerned.
Welcome to IndianExpress.com. The name of the 18th century Mughal emperor Aurangzeb is once again in the news. His grave, located in Khuldabad near Nagpur, has become a bone of serious contention, with several groups demanding its demolition. The controversy appears to have been sparked by the release of the film Chhawa, which depicts the life of the second Maratha emperor Sambhaji Maharaj and his conflict with Aurangzeb. I'm joined by Professor Ali Nadeem Rezavi to discuss more about Aurangzeb, the man that he was, his legacy, and more. Professor Rezavi teaches at Aligarh Muslim University and is a specialist in Mughal history. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank
To,
you.
to begin with, sir, can you explain to me a little bit about, in your understanding, who was Aurangzeb? What was his personality like? What was he as a person?
Well, mm, just like the other Muslim, or I should say the Mughal kings, he was also an autocrat, and unlike the present times, he was not heading a parliament,
Hmm.
uh, and he was having absolute sovereign powers in his hands. And he also tried to project himself as a divine king,
Okay.
trying to impress upon the masses that somehow he's, a person appointed by God. I mean, I
Oh,
hope that rings a bell in your ears, but this is how he tried to project himself.
all right.
And, it is without doubt any saying that after the reign of Emperor Ashok,
Hmm.
perhaps he was the only other person who was holding such vast territories under his control.
Okay.
If Shah Jahan, like Ashoka, had tried to cross the borders of India and go towards Central Asia, cross the Himalayas, the Hindu Kush, and try to expand his kingdom to that side, Aurangzeb was one of those who was, in fact, ruling over the greatest empire of his period. In fact, the empire under him, the Mughal empire under him, was much more greater than any other political rule in the world during that period of time.
Okay.
So, what we are dealing with is that here is an emperor with absolute powers in his hands and a vast territory to control.
Hmm.
Number one. Number two, also a person who tries to project himself as a divine king.
Hmm.
That is the Aurangzeb which we are going to discuss.
Okay.
Also, remember that just like the other kings, he was not unique in this.
Hmm.
He was also as cruel or as authoritative as any one of them had been. Uh, and uh, whenever he wanted, he was also very munificent, quite thoroughly well read, and he was also, on the one hand, taking extreme measures, but on the other hand, was also implementing those policies which were going to, help the society under him develop. So I can say that at one time, he was a mixture of opposites. Although, I mean, this thing is said about another ruler of Delhi, Muhammad bin Tughlaq,
Hmm.
that Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a composite of contradictions. But more than Muhammad bin Tughlaq, I find Aurangzeb to be a person who was actually a mixture of opposites. On the one hand, very munificent, but on the other hand, also cruel. A
Hmm.
great ruler, no doubt, but also the one who committed many mistakes. Uh,
Okay.
Under him, as I said, he presided over the greatest of the empires, but then he was presiding over an empire which was on the verge of, a collapse.
Hmm.
All type of problems which had never risen before Aurangzeb took power. In the 50 years of his reign,
Hmm.
we find that his empire was suffering from a lot of issues. Some of those his own creations, but some which had been inherited by him due to other exigencies.
Okay. So whatever you're telling me about Aurangzeb, many aspects of him would appear to be reflected in other kings of his time or even before as well. So when we study about Aurangzeb in our history textbooks, he's almost singled out as this communal, bigoted leader. Throughout we have studied about Aurangzeb in that way. To what extent would you say that is true, or why has history writing made him the sole villain?
The history writing has never made him a sole villain. Unfortunately, what is happening is that in the present decades, uh, history itself is being villainized.
Hmm.
What is happening since a decade or two is that attempts are being made by those who know nothing about history to, in fact, do away with it and replace it with mithya. I
Hmm.
am using the Sanskrit word mithya and not the English term or the Latin term mythology or derived from mythos. There's a difference. Mythology or myth is something which is a tale which cannot be proved.
Hmm.
It might have happened, it might not have happened. When you don't have particular primary evidence for something, whether it happened or not, we call it as a mythology or a myth.
Hmm.
But then the Sanskrit term myth stands for, I mean, uh, whatever you want to think about.
Okay.
It's just out of the hat. When suddenly today I decide that I should project myself that in my past, my family belonged to the family of kings. So I try to create a history which had never existed before. That is known as myth. What is happening these days is that certain people have decided that what should be ideal history of our past, and it is only that we should teach to our students, to those who are getting educated in schools or in colleges or doing research. And that is why a syllabus is being tried to be promoted, which is based on a historical facts, things which had never happened before. So actually, this whole demonization of Aurangzeb has nothing to do with history. That is, I can say that, although it's not a right term, that it is a popular misrepresentation, a deliberate popular misrepresentation of what Aurangzeb, or for that matter, any of those kings of the 16th, 17th, or even earlier centuries had been.
So are
So
you
whatever
saying,
we,
sorry, please go ahead.
whatever is being tried to be built in his image, that is something which we wish that he was so. Our
Hmm.
sources, how do we come to know the past? We come to know the past not because Aurangzeb or Akbar or Ashoka, they would come and tell us how they had been. It is only on the basis of the sources which were created during their period of time.
Hmm.
When you
Okay.
read them, it is only then that we come to know what actually happened.
Hmm.
It is a fact that sometimes even what is being recorded might not be the actual truth. I mean, I'll give you an example. Today, if some event happens in Delhi, for example, and Indian Express and Times of India and Hindustan Times, three newspapers report that incident, with all the three reporters being present on that occasion, but the reports filed by each of them would be very different, right? So what we as readers, what we do is that we try to sift out material and try to understand what is happening, you know so that is how, I mean, even the primary sources, you might argue that a primary source might be biased. Yes, it is human nature they would be biased, but at least biased only to the extent that there would be a certain tilt which is being given by the author of that. Otherwise, it would be based on what the person had seen. And it is only if you base your argument on the primary source material, what had been written during that period, or for that matter, even not written, created during that period, would give you the essence. Now, for example, you read Mahabharata, and you read about that palace in which that entire dice play was played, and that what was the name of the queen whose Chirharan took place. I mean, you when you read it, it's all a magnificent structure with golden walls and paintings and riches, so on and so forth. But when the archaeologist, BB Lal, when he excavated at Purana Kila in Delhi and found the remains which he said belonged to the period, and probably the remains of Indraprasth, what you found was mud walls,
Hmm.
mud implements, so on and so forth. Now, whatever was found out there, that cannot be denied. What was written by a poet or a bard might be an exaggeration, but the material remain is not going to lie. So what we historians do is that we take into account both the things, the written as well as non-written material remains which survive from that period, and it is on the basis of that that we try to recreate what had happened during such and such period. Now, in order to say, for example, if you want to interpret Aurangzeb or any ruler, you have to go and look at those sources which were written or created during that very period. And it
Hmm.
is on the basis of that that we can safely say what actually happened, what actually did not happen.
So, would you agree with the fact that he was a religious bigot? or not? That he would you say that he was accomplice?
A very correct question, a question which has been worrying many. There is no denying the fact that Aurangzeb became one of the first kings who tried to mix religion with politics.
Okay.
Uh, Akbar also tried to do that in one way
Hmm.
when he came up with his policy of Sulekul. But his policy of Sulekul was actually a negation of religions, not a preference towards one particular religion. What
Okay.
Aurangzeb did was something which can never be justified. It was he that when all type of failures started taking place during his reign, that in order to deal with them, all the failures which were taking place. Now, for example, when he took up his, throne, the first thing which he encountered was that there was an agrarian problem. There was a shortage of food. The peasants were, fleeing from their lands, abandoning the lands. And when there was abandonment of the land, the result was that the land revenue could not be properly collected. And when land revenue could not be collected, it resulted in two things. One, it affected the state treasury, but on the other hand, it created hunger. People were looking for food. You see, that was a major problem which occurred during that period. And then followed by that, remember that for the first 10 years of Aurangzeb's reign, his father was alive. His father, Shah Jahan, was alive and kicking.
Hmm.
What he did was that he had thrown him into, the Marg Darshak Dal. You be there, guide me, but you are not the king. Hmm. Something which now present day politicians do when they do away with their own mentors. This is what Aurangzeb did. And the result was that he always feared that one day one section of nobility might abandon him and go and, once again align with Shah Jahan. So there was an issue which was taking place. Thirdly, due to a number of reasons, there was a Jagir crisis. That during the Mughal period, everything was based on land. A piece of land known as Jagir would be assigned to those who were serving the state, and the whatever revenue was collected from there was in lieu of the services which were being rendered by these administrative officers. The administrative officers were known as mansabdars, and the salary, the payment which was being given to them in kind, not in cash, was in the form of jagir. So there was a crisis of jagirs where there was no land available to be given. So there was a demand, a salary demand, but it could not be met by the state, resulting in a crisis. So what was happening is that in during the even the first half of Aurangzeb's period, all type of crisis starts complicating the situation. Remember that on top of that, his father is still alive and is a virtual threat.
Hmm.
Then then a phase starts from 1665 when the popular revolt starts.
Hmm.
No popular revolt ever took place under any of the previous kings. They were either nobles' revolts or the revolts of the princes. But now, for the first time under Aurangzeb, we find that even common people, for example, take the case in 1665 when the Sikh rebellion took place. That Guru Tegh Bahadur,
Hmm.
you know, the people of Kashmir, the peasants of Kashmir, they were being overburdened by the taxation, number one. Number two, There was also the religious issue involved on top of them, because it is alleged that they were, being forced that they should give up their religion and turn to Islam. So there was this issue, both religious plus, economic, financial. Result was that Guru Tegh Bahadur had to revolt in 1665. I mean, there are other reasons also. I'm not only saying that the religion was the cause, but okay, there was one popular revolt, a revolt not by the nobles, but basically by the people who are the peasants, the tillers of the soil. Then in 1669, in the region of Mathura, you have the revolt of the Jats. It
Okay.
was a serious revolt. Gokula Jat, who was a zamindar, he revolted against the Mughal administration, the Mughal Faujdar, and the result was that there was a popular revolt with all the people joining him together. Basically, the Jat community. Once again, all of them were peasants who had never taken up arms against the Mughal state before this. Then, in 1672, another issue started in Narnaul. There was the Saptami revolt. It was a sect, just like the Sikhs. Once again, peasants, petty shopkeepers, they revolted. And, revolts at the popular level, which is taking place. And
Hmm.
then ultimately in 1679, some of the, Rajput families, for example, Rathors, very prominent group of, the Mughal, administrative system, they revolted. And at a time when all these crises was going on, also remember that it was also the time when Aurangzeb had tried to show that he was more powerful than his father had ever been. So he had started following a forward policy in which he sent armies to conquer the territory of Assam. It was a failure. He tried to go towards, Kuch Bihar. It was a failure. Attempts were being made in the Deccan. They were a failure. So, in total, what was happening is that by 1679, there was a total collapse, everywhere. There was one issue or the other, which no other Mughal king had faced before. And what Aurangzeb did was that in order to, get out of all this, it was at that particular time that he invoked religion. When he took over as the king, we have his farmans, which ensure that no temple should be, touched, no Brahman should be touched. We
Okay.
have Aurangzeb, giving grants to various temples. We have Aurangzeb, confirming and reconfirming the grants which had been given to by the previous Mughal rulers. We have a situation where, according to Professor M. Athar Ali, who worked on Mughal nobility under Aurangzeb, a situation where 33% of the total, administrators, the mansabdars and jagirdars of the Mughal court, the ministers, they are non-Muslims. In
Okay.
fact, for the first time after Akbar, the finance minister, the most sensitive ministry, is with Raghunath Rai. Very powerful and important, subas, states, provinces like Gujarat, Bengal, and others, even Deccan, they are being assigned to Rajputs, Mirza Raja Jai Singh, Jaswant Singh, and so on and so forth. Everything is there, but what is happening? The result is that, in the society there is a turmoil and there is a failure which Aurangzeb is facing. So what he does is that he starts using religion, and it is in 1679 for the first time, at a time when even his son Prince Akbar, he is revolting against his father.
Hmm.
It is at that particular moment of time that suddenly Aurangzeb thinks that there should be imposition of jizya, that
Hmm.
there should be a number of temples which should be broken, and other such measures which are controversial and should not have ever taken place, they start being implemented. Now, here is a desperate man who is trying to, uh, use religion. Once again, we should remember that sometimes history repeats itself. You
Hmm.
know, everything fails when economy is not under your control, when the India, instead of going up, is now suddenly in every field coming down. What do? You suddenly come up with, issues like Aurangzeb, Shivaji, this, that, and try to control that people should get distracted by these religious things, and they start voting for you once again. So what Aurangzeb is doing the same thing which now is being done during the 21st century. So
Okay,
yes,
fair.
in a way, Aurangzeb was using religion, which no one can defend. But then one should remember that today we live in a nation which is a proper nation under Mughals during 17th century. There was no concept of a nation. Today we have a constitution which had been given to us by our freedom fighters, especially Ambedkar and Nehru and others. And we have a proper written constitution of which we are actually very proud. And we have a robust parliament, and we have parliamentary rules and regulations. We have a court. Now, during the 17th century, at a time when Aurangzeb or any other such ruler were ruling, no such things were there. So, if something bad happened during that period, we should condemn it, no doubt. These things can never be condoned. But then the question which I would ask you is that if the same things are being repeated in 1992, or now they are being, tried to be repeated once again, who is more at fault? Aurangzeb, who was a sovereign, who was a divine king, who
Hmm.
had no other, power over him. He could do anything, or a democratic country which is being run by a constitution and rules and regulations.
Hmm. Yes.
So if you condemn this, you condemn this.
Yes. Let's come to a little bit about Aurangzeb and the Marathas, because that appears to be the literally the spark to this current controversy. Could you explain to me a little bit about what was Aurangzeb's relations with the Marathas, and particularly with Sambhaji Maharaj?
Aurangzeb's relations with Marathas is something, which Sir Jadunath Sarkar, the famous 19th century historian, calls that the whatever happened in the Deccan was actually a Spanish ulcer as far as Aurangzeb is concerned.
Okay.
It was something, say, for example, Aurangzeb entered into the Deccan in 1580, and till his death, he could never come out. Even today, his grave is, in Aurangabad.
Hmm.
He never returned back to the. So everything, you can understand that if there is a war situation, what would happen to the governance and the administration. So that is why people like Sir Jadunath have called it as a Spanish ulcer, with which I would tend to agree that it was one of the greatest undoings of Aurangzeb. But then one should also remember that Deccan had always been a Karam Bhumi for Aurangzeb. As a prince, he had been posted out there as the Subadar during the period when Shah Jahan was the emperor.
Okay.
When he had been posted there, when he was sent there, the situation in the Deccan, the Maratha territory, was very bad. It was in doldrums. There was no funds available. Agriculture was suffering all type of stuff. sufferings were there. So we find that Aurangzeb tried to solve that situation by launching certain reform movements, so on and so forth. In fact, one of the reasons for the clash between Aurangzeb and his father Shah Jahan was based on what Aurangzeb wanted Shah Jahan to do in Deccan. He wanted, as a governor, to get more and more funds for his own state, Deccan. But Shah Jahan, he was presiding over an empire which had 22 provinces, and he could not just, look towards one of the province and neglect the other. So naturally, there was a tussle between the father and the son. But then, when Aurangzeb became the king, uh, uh, you know, the situation further developed. Uh, he, Deccan became an issue for him even before 1580 when he entered into it. Initially, he posted one of his uncles, Shaista Khan,
Okay.
who was a grandee. And what happened was that, you know, that mm, uh, Shivaji attacked Surat. Shivaji sacked Surat. Shaista Khan, the governor of the Deccan area, was, one night injured in one of the sudden attacks which Shivaji had launched, bringing public humiliation to the Mughal forces. And thus, uh, 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 Shaista Khan had to be removed. The uh, Turani and Irani nobles,
Mhm.
uh, the so-called Muslim nobles, you can say, they were requested by Aurangzeb that any one of you should go and replace Shaista Khan. It is very interesting if you read the sources that all of them refused.
Okay.
They were not ready to come. And the only person who agreed to go there was Mirza Raja Jai Singh, the Watan Jagirdar of the area which you know today as Jaipur, the Amer region. Hmm.
Okay.
The
Mhm.
family members of which today are in the BJP.
Mhm.
So what Mirza Raja Jai Singh did was he went to Deccan, and from there he started writing to Aurangzeb as the king similar letters like what Aurangzeb had written to his father. That we should do this, we should reform this, so much should be given here, blah blah blah. And he also pleaded that just like what Akbar had done in the north vis-a-vis the Rajputs, the same policy should be followed vis-a-vis the Marathas.
Okay.
What had Akbar done? Akbar had used both the carrot and the stick.
Hmm.
He defeated the Rajputs, showed them their force, and then asked them to submit, and then entered into marriage alliances. So much so that by the end of Akbar's reign, one third of Mughal nobility comprised of the Rajputs. There were three important sections in the Mughal nobility: the Turanis, Iranis, and the Rajputs, all holding almost equal positions. And this had continued up till the time of Aurangzeb. Right? So Mirza Raja Jai Singh, he wrote to Aurangzeb that we should follow the same policy. And to an extent, it was followed in the sense that when in 1665 the Battle of Purandar took place, the Battle of Purandar was a battle in which, from the Mughal side, it was Mirza Raja Jai Singh who was fighting against Shivaji. Right? So it was Mirza Raja Jai Singh versus Shivaji. The Mughal forces were being led by the Rajputs. Incidentally, also remember that even among these common soldiers, the Mughal army, the majority were always the non Muslims. Even today, if you look at the population of Hindus and the Muslims are in a minority. Even during that period, there were very few Iranis and Turanis. It was the indigenous people who were recruited in the Mughal armies. Indigenous Mughal army, led by Mirza Raja Jai Singh, a non-Muslim, fought and defeated Shivaji. And after the defeat, he was made to sign a treaty known as Treaty of Purandar. Now, if you read that Treaty of Purandar, and you may find it in the pages of Sir Jadunath Sarkar's 6 volume History of Aurangzeb, it is very much available in each and every book which has been written on Aurangzeb, and it's a very fair, treaty which takes place. You surrender those forts to us, but in return, you would be offered a mansab of 5,000, 5,000. 5,000, 5,000, 5,000 Zat, 5,000 Sawar. Personal rank 5,000, and the duties which is assigned against you, the troops which are assigned to you, are of equal number 5,000, 5,000. That was a position of a grandee under the Mughals. Most of the Rajputs, when they had been given service, they had been offered much lesser positions. And in the Mughal, system, a lesser mansab would be given, and slowly and gradually you would rise. And the highest rank which you could ever get was 8,000, 8,000. No noble could go beyond that. Right? So 5,000, 5,000 was a big rank which was being offered in the first go. It is the same thing as when in the universities, a person who has never been a lecturer or a reader, you say that I am appointing you directly as a professor.
Hmm. Hmm.
You may become senior professor later on, but you are being inducted in the higher echelons of the Mughal administration. The he was the 5,000, 5,000 were people who were counted among Umarai Uzzam, the great grandees of the Mughal court. So Shivaji was offered that. Not only Shivaji, his son Sambhaji was offered that position, and they accepted. But then, when they went to the court, subsequently, an issue arose. Shivaji had problems in the sense that he could not tolerate that Shaista Khan, whom he had almost killed, who had been the Subadar, he was holding the rank of 8,000 at 8,000 and given a privileged position. Whereas Shivaji, who had defeated him, he thought that I should be treated as the victor over this person whom I had vanquished. Why should he be standing in front of me? So all that fracas started on the basis of that. But then also remember that, when Shivaji started all that, ruckus within the court, he was sent to the house of Raja Ram Singh. Raja Ram Singh is the son of Mirza Raja Jai Singh, a Rajput, a Hindu. And it is in his Haveli that Shivaji remained till he escaped back and declared himself as the king. So I can say that howsoever Aurangzeb was wrong in certain measures of his, but as far as his approach towards the Marathas is concerned, it was not wrong. In fact, if you look at the Mughal nobility as it came to exist and during the reign of Aurangzeb, and I will refer to you the book written by M. Athar Ali, Nobility Under Aurangzeb, you will find that at least there were 11 or 12 Maratha chieftains who had been inducted in service. And these were the, people who had never been in Mughal service before. You see, so in a way, what Aurangzeb was doing was as per the practice of the time, number one. Number two, naturally, as a king, he wanted to have his own control over everything, but was offering that if you cooperate, then you would also become the part and parcel. One should ask a question that when jizya was imposed by Aurangzeb, which we keep on criticizing, why did all those Rajput chieftains holding high positions under Aurangzeb did not protest? Or for that matter, why did all those Hindu historians of Aurangzeb's period, you know, what I am trying to argue out is that the entire policy of Aurangzeb might have suffered from certain problems which we should criticize, and every sane person should. The matter of the fact is that if you mix religion with politics, that is condemnable. But then, apart from that, there are other actions of Aurangzeb which should be tried to be understood. His entire policy towards Marathas was not based on religion at all. You see, the entire issue of Marathas is the issue of a region versus the center. At a time when Aurangzeb in 1680 decides to descend to Deccan, he's not going against Sambhaji. He is going there because he fears that his own son, Prince Akbar, has taken shelter with Sambhaji, and this son can be a problem, number one. Number two, this son can also, make Marathas take certain actions which were not conducive for the Mughal Empire.
Okay.
So it was, the basic thing was the presence of Prince Akbar. And Sambhaji also understood. So what happens is that as soon as, Aurangzeb enters into the Deccan, Prince Akbar and Sambhaji both decide that he should leave the place. And Prince Akbar leaves the Sambhaji's court. But by now, Aurangzeb, remember that it is the emperor himself. Now, he has gone to war against somebody, and everyone is expecting that he should come out victorious. It is not a general which has been said. So, he has to fight. अपनी नाक बचानी है तो करना. One it would be said that the emperor himself went and he could not fight. So there is to be a war. But then Aurangzeb also decides that the territory of the Marathas can never be annexed, made part of the Mughal Empire, as Bengal had been, as Bihar had been, and other places had been. When all those territories were annexed, there was no question of Hindu and Muslim. And this territory can only be annexed if Bijapur and Golconda are not there to support the Marathas. Remember that there were three major political parties in the Deccan: Bijapur, Golconda, and the Marathas. And Aurangzeb did write letters to Bijapur and Golconda that they should support him. But they refused. They kept on helping out Sambhaji. Why? Because it was a question of the region. All three knew that if one of them is gone, the other would be gone. So what Aurangzeb did in the Deccan was that Golconda had to be defeated and annexed, Bijapur had to be defeated and annexed, and both of them not only through military endeavor. Military was a failure. It was the Mughal gold, rishwat, bribes, offering of higher mansabs, asking the nobility of these places to leave their sultan and come over and join the Mughals. Right? Now, after they were removed from the place, incidentally, both of them were Muslims. So it was not a matter of Hindu versus Muslims. So when both these Muslim states had been defeated, only then now Aurangzeb started looking towards the territory of Sambhaji. Was Aurangzeb able to defeat Sambhaji? No. They were well trained in the Bargigiri, the warfare which in which there would be small troops and they would suddenly attack and return back, and the Mughal heavy artillery and heavy military was unable to do anything against them. So what did Aurangzeb do? He did the same thing as was done against Bijapur and Golconda, bribes. And that is why what we find is that our sources mention, and for those sources, I'm no expert of the Marathas and Shivaji, but go and read what Sir Jadunath Sarkar has written or other works which have been done on the Maratha history for this period. They have written that there were two type of people who defected. Intelligence was given to the Mughal forces by certain Brahmins who reported against the position of Sambhaji. The Shirke family, Shirkes were, one of the noble families of the Marathas themselves. They, betrayed Sambhaji. You read V.D. Savarkar, you read, Jadunath Sarkar. Both of them say that Sambhaji was an inefficient person. I don't know how far they are correct or how far they are wrong. Incidentally, you and me, both of us know that if somebody is defeated, that person is treated as a coward. So I don't know whether Savarkar is right in saying that, or Jadunath is writing it correctly or not. But the fact is that the Shirke family, who were, family relatives of the Marathas, of the family of Shivaji, they, revolted against, there was a rebellion which helped the Mughals, and then the certain Brahmins who had been the tax collectors, they reported against where Sambhaji was hiding, and thus the Mughal army could reach those forts with the help of Marathas themselves. It is very well written even in Mughal sources that the Mughal commander Muqarrab Khan was led to the fort of Sangameshwar, where Sambhaji was, at that moment stationed. The Mughal army was stealthily, led to that place through secret routes, and suddenly they appeared and a fight was fought. In the battle, now it was a sudden attack, and naturally it was the defeat of Sambhaji.
Okay.
And what do you expect a king to do? Naturally, after having suffered for such a long period of time, the natural result was that first, just like what in Battle of Purandar, Shivaji had been offered by Mirza Raja Jai Singh, that either you surrender all the forts, accept the Mansab, become one of those servants of the Mughal Empire, or face death. Sambhaji refused, and naturally, after the offer was rejected, the only other option which is left to an imperial power is the execution of the person.
Okay.
And that took place. Now, whether that execution was barbaric or not, it was as per the traditions which were being followed 300 years back. Now, to lament on what happened during that period, now in 21st century, and start, burning things of today and holding a community which probably never knows what happened during that period. Incidentally, Adrija, I will also remind you that in 1991-92, when Advani ji's movement started, it was Babar ki aulad. Every blame was on Babar ki aulad, the Muslims. Today, from Babar ki aulad, now they are the Vanshaj of Aurangzeb, and that is why they have to be punished. This entire thing which is being built has nothing to do with what had happened. It is basically politics and nothing else.
All right. Okay. Thank you, sir, for such detailed explanation and discussion on Aurangzeb. It was truly enlightening and very detailed. So thank you so much for your time. Um, I'll end the interview here. And once again, thank you for agreeing to speak with me and joining us today.